Great day, leaders. Welcome to the Speaking Life in the You Leadership live stream. I am your host, Dr. Joe Griffin, where we talk leadership dynamics, personal and professional growth, educational trends, and we provide solutions for school improvement to help you create a culture of collaboration. Let's go! I'm happy, you all. It is a great week. I am happy to be here. I'm happy that you all have decided to join in, whether you're live or whether you're in person. And we got a very serious topic today. We're talking about school safety. And one of the thoughts that comes to me when I think about school safety, when you get knocked down, what are you doing to make sure you get back up? I'm gonna say that again. When you get knocked down, what are you doing to make sure that you get back up? Because it's not easy. And being leaders, being in school systems, there's always something. There's always an issue. There's always something going on. So you all that are in with definitely tap in. I want to make sure you do sign in where you're calling from, where you're coming in from. We want to know. And we also want to start with our affirmation. Y'all, we got to start with our affirmation each and every week. Embed those processes in us. Remember that self-awareness is what it's about. I prioritize my emotional well-being. Let me hear you say it, you all. Put it in the chat. I prioritize my emotional well-being. That's going to be so important. I do more than a job as an educator. I do more than a job as an educator. I analyze data to enhance what I do. I analyze data to enhance what I do. All those things are very important when you're talking about tragedies. I want to start with a poem, you all. And it's not coming up. I had a video.
Constantly doing what it does to disrupt, to dehumanize, actions of genocide, tearing our communities up. What are we to do? How are we supposed to act or react? My fears are huge, as well as they should be. I don't know where the next act of rage is coming from. And it pains me to know that it probably will happen yet again. At all costs. Do I just stay at home? Do I just stay silent because I'm unsure of what will happen next? Too much stress, way too much thought. My brain will burst if I don't get this out. I wish those trigger men could have just gotten their anger out some other way.
It's dragging you all, but dare not remain silent. We have got to do something about this violence in our schools, in our communities, all over America. So today, we got a very special guest. And the thing is, you all, you don't want to wait until something happens to get ready. Principal Kafele mentioned on his show just yesterday, being prepared even when you couldn't prepare. Being prepared even when you couldn't prepare. And I'll be on his show on this next Saturday, so make sure you guys tune in to that as well. But we're going to go ahead and get with the show. We've got Dr. Robert Kirton, a recurring guest. He's got many years of experience, a school safety expert, former military personnel, former area superintendent, former principal, professor of educational leadership, my colleague, my affiliate, my friend, and we're going to talk school safety matters today. Let me bring him to the stage. Dr. Kirton, Dr. Kirton.
How you doing, sir?
Privilege to have you again.
It's good to be with you, sir. I'm having a little technical difficulty, but we're going to push through it.
Yeah, I'm having a little technical difficulties as well. Got a little echo, but we're going to keep working. School safety. Man, it's a very interesting topic, a very intense topic that we're going to be discussing today. You have long been a school safety expert, and we know that school safety is more than just about being safe. It's about creating environments in which our people trust one another, that we can count on each other to kind of get us out of situations, alert us about situations that occur, and things of that nature. We're going to jump right in. What do you think schools are missing, Dr. Kirton, when it comes to building a truly safe environment in our schools?
Well, thank you, Dr. Joe, for having me back again, and looking forward to a fruitful conversation as it relates to school safety. What I see in many schools today, and with many educators, they are in a false security zone. What I mean by that, they think that their school is safe because nothing like that has happened in my school. But however, you can't just rely on something that happened. You don't know when something's going to take place in your school. So you have to be prepared. You need to have a comprehensive, all hands-on approach to make sure that your school is safe and secure while improving your climate and culture. I've been in schools all across the country. I was on the Ripple Effects National Advisory Board, and my job was to go into hot spots where maybe there's been a shooting, some type of catastrophe, and I would provide training to the staff, and I would do school climate safety assessments. So I walked through a lot of schools, and what I saw that was very consistent, Dr. Joe, within 20 feet, and you know this because you're a basketball star, or maybe you're a superstar, but within 20 feet of walking in that school, you see that trophy case with all those beautiful trophies in there. Another thing I see is an antiquated in-school suspension system or in-school suspension room. We put people in there that's not trained, not having any mental health background. A lot of these schools don't have mental health personnel on their campuses. So just really making sure that these schools are safe is important. So the first thing I look at when I go visit a school is I look at this school safety audit. And I want to see, have they done one within the last year? And if they've done a school safety audit, I want to see, do they have a safety team? Do they have a safety team? And is that school resource officer on that team? There's other top level law enforcement on that team. I think it's vitally important to have a strong school safety team. And you want to visit that audit just once a year. Now, I sent you a slide, and I want you to pull it up for me, unless you want to go into something else.
No, here it is right here. Definitely good stuff. I definitely want to show the slide.
Okay, so let's take a deeper dive into your school safety climate and ask yourself, if we had any administrators on the line today, how safe is your school? We take a comprehensive collaborative approach. When we do our walkthroughs, we look at not just school safety, but climate as a part and culture as a part of safety as well. So we start with a DNA safety audit, and we assess the needs, the challenges, and creating a strategic framework for action that builds on a strong foundation for safe, supported teaching and learning environment. You want to have a strong teaching and learning enterprise. And with this safety audit, you want to make sure that you have things in place, like mental health experts you want to look at having mental health experts on campus. Now, when I started out, my first administrative position, Dr. Joe, and we'll probably get into this a little deeper because we're going to talk about gun violence. But I just want to bring this up. My first administrative assignment was in 1996. And the school, I was at the alternative school, and a young man from the alternative school went over to this high school, and he was shot dead on the 3rd floor, not the 1st floor, not in the entryway, but he was shot dead on the 3rd floor. So I applied for the job there as an administrator, assistant principal. And the principal told me, she said, "Hey, I knew you was going to be a superstar." I said, "How did you know that?" She said, "Well, you had a nice portfolio and you were the only person that applied for the job. This school was so bad that no one else applied for that job." And that was my first assignment as an administrator. And so I took school safety very seriously from there. But I grew up right around the corner from that particular school. And it was, at the time, it was all white school. My mother had to walk past that school 15 miles. My grandmother worked in the kitchen, but my mother couldn't attend that school. But over time, as people took flight out of the city, the whole dynamics of the community and the neighborhood changed. So anyway, I always took these safety audits very seriously and making sure that you had a framework to be successful. I also look at certain things like I talked about walking into these classrooms and walking into the school, but then I look at the walls. What's on the walls? When I'm looking at a climate assessment, I want to see student work on the walls. But I want to know, do you have a 1-800 hotline? You can answer that question theoretically. In theory, do you have a 1-800 hotline at your school? That's a great tool because students can report things anonymously to that hotline, and then you can find out certain things you would never known about. So I want to see on that wall about that 1-800 hotline. So you do have a 1-800 hotline. Do you have posters around the school where students can report certain incidents, or they feel in a certain type of way? They can report that. Another number I want you to have, besides your personal 1-800 hotline, on the wall, I want to see that 988 number. 988. That's a suicide prevention number. You can text that number. Students can text that number, and make sure you have them posted. Because I'm going to tell you, and if you offer a little reward, students will give you a whole bunch of information with just a honey bun. So I want to make sure that you go ahead, sir.
No, I was just saying that's great information. I hope that our listeners, our viewers are taking that in. I definitely, we'll talk a little bit more about suicide prevention later. I have a personal story that relates to it, but you're saying some really good information.
And then you want to make sure that all your stakeholders are informed. When you're talking about developing a safety plan and having a safety system in place, do your students know what to do for each type of an emergency? For example, do you have a protocol system if there's a bomb threat versus a fire versus an active shooter? And those require different actions on behalf of your students. If there's a fire, you need to get out of that building as soon as possible. If it's an active shooter, you need to shelter in place. But just take, for example, and looking at new technologies that's out there, say you had a bomb threat. Someone calls into the school and they said, you got, a clock is ticking. You got T-minus 5 minutes to get out of the building because the bomb is getting ready to go off. So if you had technology, you can fly a drone to make sure the perimeter is safe. Because maybe you just start piling everybody out the building and you have a sniper in the woods, in the tree, picking people off when they come out the building. So you really have to take a deeper dive into your safety measures to make sure that everything is copacetic across the board. You can't just look at one situation, somebody pull a fire alarm and everybody run out, and then another person's out there picking them off. So you need to have protocols in place, and you need to use technology to the best of your advantage. And
Definitely.
then,
As you were talking, I was thinking about the safe and orderly standards. Those are actual standards that we have for administrators. So whenever in those particular roles of leadership, that must be a priority. And kind of add to what you said, I think crisis plans definitely want to have those up and available. You got to make sure that people know what they're supposed to do. Being prepared, even though you don't really know what's going to happen. And that's something that we're saying that we want to do, but we really know that it's hard to prepare for something when you don't know what's going to happen. So I'm definitely understanding, and I'm hoping that our viewers are catching on. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, because we giving you value each and every week. So, Dr. Kirton, how would you say that we should build partnerships with our schools, with our staff, administrators, and a key component, school resource officers or school safety officers?
well, I was just 2 counties over from where the shooting took place in Georgia. And I was
Mm,
meeting with the principal and the school resource officer. It is vital that you develop a healthy relationship with that school resource officer and make sure that everyone understands their roles. Now, I've never been one as a disciplinarian just to turn it over to the school resource officer. That school resource officer is there in case you have someone breaking the law. And whether you want them to be involved or not, they're going to get involved in that situation. But when it comes to disciplinary issues, you don't want your school resource officer handling those day-to-day disciplinary issues. You want that resource officer to serve as a mentor. You want him to break the ice with your students and let them know that he's a friend, a confidant, someone he can come to. I wouldn't even post them up in the cafeteria. I might put them outside the cafeteria. But just looking at defining those roles, and most times what I find out going across the country, a lot of people don't get a chance to interview that school resource officer. They don't even develop a relationship. They just drop there at the school and you just go from there. So
right.
when it comes to parents, you need to communicate with parents as well. And we have a module called the parent support module. And you might ask, why do you need a parent support module? Because you need to disseminate information to your parents about gun safety, about locking guns up, making sure that they can't get to guns, making sure that they checking in with their students every day and not just going weeks at a time without talking to them. So you want to bring parents in as partners. You want to bring them in as partners on your team. And then when you're looking at safety preparedness, you want to make sure that parents are informed and where to go to reunite with their children in case you have a catastrophe at your school, whether it's a bomb, whether it's an active shooter, we have to vacate that building for any reason. You want to have a plan of where they're going to go. So it might be to the football field, but things might be so hot around that school, you might have to bring in a community partner. You might have to evacuate to a nearby church, another government facility. You might have to walk a half a mile to get to where you need to go. So you need to have all those things in place and looking at the worst case scenario when it comes down to safety. But more importantly, you need to have law enforcement as a part of your safety team. So they know what your building is like. You need to have your classrooms numbered. You need to have a map. You need to have fire plans, as you said, and critical plans. And unfortunately, today, you need to have a triage kit. In case someone really gets seriously hurt, you may have to perform triage until 911 services get there.
Definitely, definitely. And as we were speaking, I was thinking about how the role of school safety officers and school resource officers is changing. It has changed from back in the day. Police officers are trained to be reactive versus proactive. But now in the schools, you want your school resource officers and school safety officers to be proactive, like you said, to form those relationships, to go ahead and build those bonds with students so that they can get the information that they need. Because students will go to them if they trust them and they feel like they can take information to them that will save lives. So I definitely appreciate you putting a twist on how school safety officers are used. And here's a counterpart to that. Here on the West Coast, in some schools even, I worked in a school where we didn't have a school resource officer, and we were the crisis team. We had to respond to all of the different things that happened, and it was actually against this is a did we go in? Okay. Either way, you want to make sure that you're working well with your school resource officers. So would you kind of add to that on how the role may have changed and how we can partner staff, administrators, and school resource officers?
Well, the role has changed because the times have changed. We got more high-powered weapons out there that we didn't have before back in the day when I was coming up. Now you got these high-powered magazines, these high-powered rifles, but we also have technology that we didn't have in place back in the day as well. So you want to take advantage of all the technologies that you can take advantage of to keep your school safe. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. And I've been in a lot of schools, and the first thing I do is I look at how can I get into that building. And I walk up to do a safety audit as a part of a safety team. How can I get into that building? And now most people have safe entryways. Now they might but they might make a mistake with that safe entryway. So you might have a metal detector, and you think that's a good safety measure, and it could be. But how about the person just decided to just blast the people at the metal detector? You need to have a buffer zone in that school and have an access control system before you let people into the building. So I go to a lot of different schools. Like I said, I was just 2 counties over. And when I pulled up to the school and I rang the bell, they said, "Yes, may I help you?" I said, "I'm here to see the principal." Bam, they brought me in just like that. They didn't validate me. They didn't say, what's your name? Do I have you on the charts for a meeting? They just bam, let me in the building. So, even though you have these things in place, and I worked with this one particular district where I went through the whole district, and they brought me in as a expert to look at changing every safe entryway in their schools, in all of their schools. We moved the district office. So sometimes an outside set of eyes can be very important. Now, my set of eyes have seen a lot of things. I'm also a contractor, so I've been a licensed contractor for 25 years. I taught school building planning for 16 years. So when I come into your school, I take a different approach and a different look. And you mentioned something, I'm gonna go back to being proactive versus being reactive.
Yeah.
Being proactive, at one of my schools when I was principal, we gave away cars that you can drive away in. I don't know if I told you about this before. We talked about so many things, but we gave away cars that you can get in, drive away. And the superintendent asked me, he said, "Kirton, are you crazy?" And I said, "Well, sir, you already know I'm crazy." He said, "You giving away these cars and look at the liability you put in." I say, first of all, our community partners giving away the car, the Toyota dealership. Second of all, we give a car to the parents, but we based it on achievement. We based it on behavior and your attendance. So you get to put these tickets in there. So we're changing the climate, not just looking at safety measures, but you got to look at your overall climate. How does it look? How does your cafeteria look? And I've been in a lot of schools, I take a look at the cafeteria. This is the way we did our cafeteria. We put our people in chef's hat and we made them look like executive chefs coming in. And then we had salad bars, and then we had pizza, and then we had a canteen, because some of the students, even on free and reduced lunch, they didn't want to eat free and reduced lunch because it stigmatized them to go in the free and reduced lunch line. So we made lunch free for everybody. And then we made it more exciting. We made it not look like a cafeteria, but make it look like a restaurant. And I've suggested that to many schools across the country. So being proactive is very important rather than being reactive to an active shooter that's in your school.
Definitely appreciate that. Good evening, Dr. Hughes. Good evening. Create and educate in the place. Definitely appreciate you joining us tonight. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. We definitely want you to do that. Now, as you notice, we moved from overall safety measures, talked a little bit about school safety officers, parental involvement, what role that plays. Now, we're going to kind of move into an area that is really close to my heart, suicide prevention, which is also a very critical component of safety measures and safety preparedness that we're talking about in schools. I actually had the experience of having a student actually do it on campus, and the response that we had to make as far as getting therapists from everywhere around, from all of the schools in our district, the neighboring district, and even the city county therapists. We had to bring in a total community effort because it actually happened on school. Unfortunately, I was out of the professional development that day, but that was a lot of stress on me, and we still had to create a culture of collaboration. We still had to make sure that our school was prepared and that we increased test scores, in which we did. So, with that in mind, school safety is not just about ensuring that the environment is safe, but it's also about ensuring that we look out for our people's feelings, our students and our teachers' feelings. What behavioral signs, Dr. Kirton, would you say that parents, teachers, staff should kind of look out for when it comes to suicide risk, and how can they even be trained to respond?
Okay. I want you to pull up my list. I got my top 10 list, suicidal signs for parents and educators. If you have that list, but looking at sudden increase in reckless behavior, whether they just like, doing some things recklessly, like climbing on the top of high buildings, driving recklessly, just putting themselves in danger on a regular basis. Maybe vaping something that's like Lysol or something of that nature, ingesting it into their bodies and things of that nature. Just looking for that reckless behavior. Drinking cough syrup by the bottle full. Looking at signs like of isolating from their family and friends. They just want to be a loner now. They just don't want to be around families and friends, and everything just really irritates them. I was working with a school, and I don't like to call out schools. This school was in North Carolina, and no, this school was in South Carolina. Excuse me. And the superintendent has since passed on, but he brought me in to do an extensive evaluation of his alternative school. And then his principal had left and the school was in chaos. And he said, Kirton, you got principal certification. Can you just sit in for the principal until I can find one? And I said, no problem, sir. So this young lady was in the office and I was talking to her, and I noticed that she had cuts on her wrist. That's a clear sign. You got to look for things like that. As an educator, as a psychologist, as a guidance counselor, it's your job, it's your duty to look for issues and situations like that. So I saw these cuts on her wrist. So I started to have a conversation with her because she was very moody, very irritable, just in a touchy feeling type of way. And she said, you know what? I'm going to tell you why I got these cuts on my wrist. You see, my mama works at the plant on third shift. And my mama's boyfriend, he works first shift. And I said, well, why is she telling me this information? And she eventually told me, this man is coming into my room and he's having sex with me while my mother's at work. And I feel so ashamed about it. I don't know who to talk to about it. And she had an opportunity to talk to a lot of different people. We had female counselors on staff, but you don't know who they're going to open up to. So, just looking at suicidal signs like that because of family issues and what's going on at the home, whether it's drug abuse at the home, whether it's incest going on at the home, you have to take those things in accountability because those extreme mood swings or being irritated all the time, that's a sign you need to look at. Another situation, I was over the hearing board before I retired, and I heard some cases. But one case that just broke my heart. And this girl came in and and we finally caught up with the guys. And she said, "Well, you know, Dr. Kirton, I went over the house because I wanted to be with Joey. But when I got to the house, there were 4 other guys in that house, and they gang raped me." Now, you know, and I'm sad to say this, I don't know what happened, whether she got pregnant from that situation or not. And I'm not going to go into abortion. I'm going to say that for the election. But that was a very disturbing case. And just knowing that she was withdrawing from the things that she wanted to go into after that, I did recognize that. Withdrawing from activities she used to enjoy and things of that nature. So that's something that you have to be keenly aware of when a traumatic situation occurs that could lead to a suicide. And that could be a sign, a suicidal sign that parents and educators need to be aware of. Of course, we know about increased alcohol or substance abuse. And then just if someone comes up and tell you, you know, they're talking about dying or killing themselves, you got to take that seriously. You can't just let that go or say, oh, they just playing around. Or they just saying, you know, I don't have no reason to live. I mean, you know, things just bad. We don't have food at the house. I mean, you know, you talking about my grades and everything. I don't even care no more. You can suspend me. When they say something like that, that's a sign that you need to take a deeper dive and investigate what's going on at that home. Now, I'm gonna tell you, the parent, she was extremely upset with me because we had to send the girl away to a facility for a while. And she was saying, what business is it of yours to be talking about what goes on in my house? And I told her, it's all of my business. It's all about my business. It's all about what I do as an educator to make sure my students are safe when they leave here, on the way home, what's going on in the home to a certain degree. We need to know those things. But if somebody come up and tell you I'm talking about killing myself, you got to take it seriously.
Definitely, definitely. When I was full-time principal, whenever that happened, especially after that incident, I made sure that we get the help that they need. They would have to go to professionals to ensure that they get cleared, they got the mental diagnosis and help to keep moving forward, because those type of things weigh on you. And this particular student wanted to do it in front of the school. She wanted to make her bullies who had been doing those things to her for quite some time, I guess, feel the pain or feel the wrath. And I had only been there that particular year, but she had been experiencing it for many years. So I know that suicide prevention is real. Also, I have a half brother who actually did it as well. So I don't play about suicide prevention. Good evening, Brother Stokes. I see you out there in Memphis, Tennessee. Definitely appreciate you joining the stream. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You are. We're just trying to give you value each and every week. So,
Dr. Joe,
as
Dr.
we
Joe,
continue to move, yeah.
Before you leave the suicide warning, we'd be remiss if we didn't put out some resources for suicide, because somebody out there that's on the other side of your podcast might want to look at some information. I talked about the 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline. You want to post those things in your schools. But there are some other resources there on the screen, and you can take note of those. The first one is a very important one, 24/7, 988 Suicide and Crisis Hotline.
Yes, yes. Get on a minute to get that. So, in the aftermath of the tragic shooting that just happened in Georgia, human behavior, we know, plays a big role in all of this. Human behavior, the physical structures of the school, as well as the plans that you have in place. With that being said, what are some protocols that schools can take for an immediate response in case something tragic happens? Because we have to be prepared, even though there's no way to prepare.
Well, when you start talking about school shootings and other tragedies that take place in a school, you have to, like you say, have immediate response. And you got to have communication protocols to make sure that you build that trust with the staff, with the students, with everybody, because everybody's going to be affected. You want to have established a well-coordinated emergency response plan that includes lockdown procedures. Like I talked about, there are certain things that you do for certain situations. If there's a fire, you have a procedure, and you should also have a code. You should also look at, and I hate I didn't bring that with me today, you need to have a response protocol, like with different emblems and things of that nature. So you can go into that code. You can say code yellow, code red. Code red could be a fire. Code yellow could be a bomb threat.
That's right.
So you need to have these drills and updates on a regular basis. So having an immediate response, ensuring that all staff and students are trained on those protocols that I mentioned through regular drills and updates. Now, it's a shame now when we're talking about younger kids, you can kind of like do it as a game. We're going to play hide and seek. And this is a serious game of hide and seek because you don't want to get them upset thinking about, okay, I don't know if my school's going to get shot up today. Why am I doing this drill? So you can, for the younger kids, maybe third grade and below, you can play a game with them, hide and seek game. And this hide and seek game, we got to be very quiet, and we're going to pull all the blinds down, and we're going to play a little game of hide and seek. For older students, you need to let them know what's going on. If we have an active shooter drill, you want to make sure that door is locked. And when I went to this particular school where the young man got killed in the hallway, I had I came up with this idea to lock the classroom doors after the bell rang. And students, so many students were late. Our ISS room was so filled up, we had to move them to the cafeteria. I walked down to the cafeteria, it looked like it was lunchtime right after breakfast. And I said, oh man, this is not working. But I got busy with some discipline issues, and those numbers started to come back down because we set a protocol about locking the door. And if you're not in class on time, you got to report to ISS. And then you would get an excuse and get back in class. But we just wanted to set that protocol that you're going to have these doors locked, and we stuck to it, and those numbers started to come down. They came down from the cafeteria, and then we moved back into the ISS room. And then it was just expected of you to be to class on time, and that we're going to lock those classroom doors. You can get out, but you can't just get in. So
Definitely.
You talked about this as well. When a school shooting and other tragedies like that take place, you want to have mental health and emotional support on your campus. And I'm working with a superintendent in Georgia right now, and he's trying to get more mental health personnel on this campus. And he's been talking to me about that, and I see the importance of that. And he's really locked in on this. We've written for a couple of grants. We're waiting to hear back on some. I've written over $100 million in grants, and I can't think of any other grant after talking with him and about mental health, and having mental health personnel on your campus is vitally important. Providing access to counseling services for students and families, not just students, but families as well, especially after you have a horrific incident on your campus. Setting up a crisis intervention team composed of that mental health personnel, principals, and counselors to offer ongoing support and helping them to process the trauma, because everyone's going to be traumatized, whether it's a suicide, whether it's an active shooter, or there's some gang violence. Then you have to look at rebuilding trust when you have an incident that takes place on your campus. You got to look at rebuilding trust and having a sense of safety on your campus. That's going to be vitally important. Now, I see you got my framework up there. We're talking about trust, and this is our DNA framework.
Added the slide up, the DNA framework, trust and support. Crucial, you all.
Yes. Now, the way we work this framework, first of all, you got to have all your stakeholders involved. The students got to be involved, and you got to make sure that the most important thing about this framework, that everybody on the team is important. Whether you're a student, whether you're a parent, whether you're an educator or a community member, everyone on the team is important. And the way this works with this framework is tier one. this is where you want to build a foundation of trust, a universal foundation of trust with everybody in the school. I liken it to having a cold. If you don't wash your hands, you could get a cold. So you want to make sure everybody wash their hands before they eat and things of that nature. That's your tier one, a universal approach, 100% across the board. Now, when you get to tier two, now this number can change, but it's around 20%. It could be less, it could be more, depending on the situation on your particular campus. And this is where you want to strengthen trust. This individual might have gone through some things, and you want to make sure you strengthen trust there as well. So that's like, okay, they got a cold, they need some meds now. They need some Tylenol, they need some aspirin, they need some Robitussin, not a whole bottle now. They need something there to help them out at tier two. You need to have those more targeted individuals for those individuals who need it. Now, when you get to tier three, you need intensive rebuilding of trust. This is like, okay, you got full-blown pneumonia now. We got to take you to the emergency room. We got to take you to the intensive care. You need intensive rebuilding of the trust, especially if someone got killed right next to you. I mean, you're going to have to rebuild that student's trust again. I mean, they need some intensive interventions. So this DNA framework for building a climate of trust and support is vitally important in each and every school. And sometimes we skip past tier one. We don't put these things in place. So making sure, I used to give a test on the code of conduct book. And I started out teaching building construction. I didn't start off like you, Dr. Joe, teaching English and everything. So I might break up a word here and there, but I'm pretty good with a doggone hammer.
I might too.
So, you know, and so I can remember I got into it with a parent one time. I say, before your son goes into my shop, he got to make 100 on my safety exam. She said, it's just a little shop. She said, you're taking this too seriously. I said, well, what 10% of his body do you want me to send him home without? The guy was a jokester. He was playing around. And then when I became a principal, I kept that same concept. I wouldn't give my safety exam to get into the shop, but I made sure that I had a test for my code of conduct handbook and a signature page for the parents to sign off that they read the code of conduct book and send it back to us. Vitally important when you're creating a climate of trust and support.
That's right. I was just about to add that creating a culture of collaboration is not a one-time event. Mm-hmm. It must happen over and over and over again. It's got to be intentional, not random as well, whether you're talking about your instructional inputs, whether you're talking about your cultural inputs, or whether you're talking about your organizational inputs, as with your safety conversation that we're having here today. This has been a really difficult conversation, conversation that I hope that leaders and teachers are listening to. And I know that you may have safety procedures in place already, but it's always good to reiterate, always good to look back at what you're doing. And you may have been able to get some ideas. I know we gave out plenty of them today. I want to definitely shout out Harrison Conyers, Gastonia, North Carolina. We appreciate that. Miss Crystal Reddick, a lot of great information. Thank you so much, Miss Reddick, out there in Boston, Massachusetts as well. So as we prepare to kind of wrap it up and bring things to a close, what is some advice that you can give leaders as they look at the totality of safety in their buildings or in their districts?
Well, one piece of advice I can give, and we talked about it already, and I'm glad you brought it up, being proactive versus being reactive.
Yes, sir.
And then you want to create that climate. That's why that framework is circular, because it has to happen over and over and over again. Now, you can have all the safety measures in place. In Appalachia High School in Georgia, they had a lot of safety measures in place, and they had a lot of technology in place. I believe I read that they had 3 school resource officers on campus. I've never heard of that, having 3 school resource officers on campus. So they had a lot of pieces in place, but they still couldn't prevent that tragedy. So that's why it's important that you get into the DNA of behavior. Now, you know, you did come through the DNA Leadership Academy,
That's
and
right.
then I was
Data
also
needs action.
yes, sir. Data needs action. You did come through the DNA Leadership Academy with flying colors. So I'm gonna ask you a question. I don't want to put you on the spot on your own show here, but do you have this anywhere close by?
I got it in my bag.
Okay. All right. You got it in your bag. I'm gonna accept that because we've been doing a lot of postdoctoral studies with this, Dr. Joe and I, and looking at DNA behavior. Now, I was personally trained by Colonel Lee Ellis, and just to give you a little brief on spill
There
about
it
him,
is.
you got
DNA.
it. Okay, you get an A. So I was trained by the author of this book, Colonel Lee Ellis, who spent 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton. Now, that's not the Hilton that you're thinking about. He spent 5 years there with John McCain, and he was taken through all kind of torture and things of this nature. And he developed this DNA behavior system. And I was personally trained by him, and I consider him to be a friend. I was trained by him about 10 years ago. He personally trained me to look at and think about humans are hardwired, and their experiences changed them. Him being a POW changed his whole life. And he said, he told me he got another book out, Dr. Joe, called Captured by Love. And I said, well, how can you write a love story about being captured? And he said, because when some of us came back home, our wives were married and had other children. So, but they still were in love with their wives. So one of the things he told me, so that might have changed him. And with the DNA, you see it over my shoulder here. You making you see it over my shoulder here. Oh, excuse me, over my shoulder here. The DNA 10-minute transformational assessment. Now, this is a very complex platform. And I was advised to look at that because you can have all the safety protocols in the world. So, for example, the young man who just committed this horrific shooting in Georgia, he rode the bus with that gun. Now, I know I had a situation come to me at the hearing board where a young lady's hair was set on fire on the bus. A lot of things can happen on a bus. And it's about, what, 40, 50 students on the bus nowadays, Dr. Joe? I mean, I've been out of education in the public sense for a while here, but it's what, about 40, 50
Yep.
students on the bus? Well, he had that same gun with all those magazines on that bus. What you think would have happened if someone was on bullying him on that bus? And that's why we want to get deep into the DNA behavior of not just students, but educators as well. Very vital, very important. So you want to look at your strengths and
Definitely.
build on those. You want to look at your struggles and, addressing those struggles, whether it might be alcohol abuse, it might be a relationship in the family, whatever's going on, you want to look at that. You want to make sure that you're teaching your students to believe in themselves and build on those strengths and address those struggles. You want to teach your students to expect excellence, not perfection, but you want to teach them to expect excellence. So this is a very great tool. We've been diving real deep into this, Dr. Joe and I are working with this DNA. And these traits are used to help you tailor your communication and leadership. So just say if you don't give that student some attention. I was working with a principal in Georgia as well. I do a lot of work in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And one of the individuals that commented was in one of the schools I work with. And he told me, he said, they were predominantly Black high school. And this young student came in, he was from Florida. And he saw that he was disengaged from everybody. He was always sitting by himself. He was always not connected. So he said he made sure he closed his proximity to that student. So you have to look at providing support for students that you see that an issue might come, being proactive versus reactive.
Definitely. Again, that kind of goes back to it not just being about stopping incidents, but it's about providing support as a proactive measure. Because if you're providing that particular support, that might be something that person not do. It might be something that they rethink. Perhaps they have a person that they can go to as well. Some advice that I would add to that would be to involve the community, know your role that you have to play in it, and whether you're addressing bullying supporting SEL support, whether you're looking at suicide prevention, whether you're looking at other safety measures, you got to continue to have those conversations. You got to make sure you're doing what you need to do to start it up. With this global DNA behavior assessment, I think we want to make an announcement today. What you think, Dr. Kirton? You think we want to make an announcement?
Yes.
All right.
Well.
So we.
Go ahead. You gonna make it?
I was gonna tell them. So, principals and superintendents, contact one of us. We're gonna give you free or complimentary assessments for you and your top two. We believe in the global DNA behavior assessment so much that we're going to allow you to try it out so that you can see how much it accelerates the collaboration for you and your leadership team, that we have full confidence that you're going to want to do it with the rest of your staff. So again, we want to offer that. Just reach out to us. I'm going to put Dr. Kirton's information up first.
Why you putting that up, Dr. Joe?
Make sure you reach out if you want to take your school to next levels. We are both certified global DNA leadership coaches. Thank you, Ms. Jasmine Williams. Open more facilitators at schools. Hear this very powerful message from Atlanta. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Let's see here, you all. Y'all hang in with us. We are not finished yet.
Can I say something, Dr. Joe, while you coming in a little choppy?
Yes, indeed.
I want to say something. Looking at this leadership assessment, it's a very powerful tool. And then we have some additional tools and resources to go along with it. And when you put them all together, you can learn how you can advance leadership and team dynamics on your campus. I've yet to have someone take the assessment and say that that's not me. That assessment is not right. And I would tell you this. And we also have a version that we can do it with your students as well. So say, for example, the superintendent would be the leader on the assessment and the team report for the district. At the principalship level, and I think you need to offer to the principals too. I don't know, you said principals as well. I think principals need to do this too, because this is some terrible times we're going through right now. There was just another
principals and superintendent for that team.
I say we need to do that.
And that team report, when you see the team report, definitely. When you see that team report, you're going to be absolutely amazed. Another big announcement, you all. This Friday, September 20th, 2024, Empowering Educational Communities, a guide for teacher principal collaboration, will be available on Amazon. Make sure you support. Please make sure you support. It's a great book. It's a tool to be used as a back and forth between teachers and administrators to help each other, hold each other accountable, as well as provide different perspectives that you can put together to put students in position to be successful. Comes with the professional development that matches each chapter. Got two major endorsements, you all, as well. I'm going to announce that later this week, so make sure you follow. The book cover is going to change. It's going to have a gold ribbon on it that says endorsed by international educational leaders. So please be prepared to order that when it comes out this Friday. Otherwise, again, we want to make sure that principals or superintendents reach out. If you are interested in taking the global DNA leadership behavior assessment, we are definitely want to ensure you get that opportunity. We believe in it so much that we're going to give you and your top two a complimentary assessment. And when you get the team report, you're going to see how much it accelerates the collaboration in your building, how more cohesive you and your leadership team work together, how you're much more able to put students and teachers in positions to be successful. Would you like a final word, Dr. Kirton?
I'm not sure my mic is still on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great, great. No, I just think
I
that
can
it's
hear
such a
you.
great. I just think it's such a great tool, and I've yet to hear anybody say it's not them. But I'm gonna tell you this: let what you know about yourself keep you from blaming others. That's what I'm gonna leave you with, and I want you to
Ooh.
take a deep thought into that, especially with all these things going on, gun violence, um, different other tragedies happen on campus. Let what you know about yourself keep you from blaming others. We will be standing by to work with you with the assessments. We'll provide some personal coaching and training to your top two as well. And we have other tools and resources to go along with the assessment as well. I think you would thoroughly enjoy it. And I know when you put it all together, it's going to help you advance the leadership, improve student achievement, manage behaviors, not just student behaviors, but teacher behaviors as well across your campus.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, for our final affirmations, you all. And remember, you want to live these. You want to say them to yourself because you are what you think you are. And with this being a show today on school safety, I think it's important that I prioritize my emotional well-being. Let me hear you all.
I prioritize my emotional
I
well-being.
prioritize my emotional well-being. I do more than a job as an educator.
I do more than a job as an educator.
I analyze data to enhance what I do.
I analyze data to enhance what I do.
Data needs action.
Yes, sir.
You all, thank you all for joining us today. Be motivated, be inspired, continue to educate. Do what you have to do. Always speaking and writing life into you. Thanks for joining the Speaking Life Leadership Live stream.
10-4.
You in there?